Story 1. Our family always escaped to the coast whenever possible. Living just a few hours away made it simple. That year, my parents picked a remote rental in the misty forests of coastal Maine. As a moody teenager, I declared it the worst idea in history. The house itself looked pulled straight from a nightmare. A towering white Victorian with dark green shutters, buried deep among ancient pines. My dad joked as we arrived, "This is exactly how every horror movie begins, right?" Ethan's eyes went wide, but the sheer size and mystery of the place quickly enchanted him. Inside, the layout felt deliberately confusing. A massive central living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking endless dark woods and hallways that twisted in ways that defied logic. The creepiest part? A narrow connecting passage led straight into a small attached cottage where the property owner lived. His name was Victor. Tall, gaunt, always wearing the same sweat-stained old cap. His teeth were stained, but it was his loud, overly cheerful personality that stood out. He greeted us like old friends, booming about how folks up here in Maine are the kindest you'll ever meet. He promised he'd be right next door if needed, but otherwise we wouldn't even know he was there. We tried to settle in, but I spent the evening sulking and begging to go home. The next morning, my parents announced a scenic hike. I refused flat out. The real reason? I had just started dating Mia and was obsessed with texting her every second. No signal in the woods meant no Mia. After arguing, they left with Ethan, leaving me alone in the big empty house. I immediately started sending Mia photos of the bizarre hallways. When I mentioned the unlocked door to Victor's side, she called bullshit. To prove it, I walked down the dim corridor and filmed a video. The door opened easily. My stomach dropped. That door was literally right beside my bedroom. On a rush of stupid teenage bravado mixed with unease, I stepped inside while still on FaceTime with Mia. It looked ordinary. Worn couch, old TV, nothing special. Then a door slammed somewhere deeper in the cottage. Pure panic hit me like electricity. I bolted back and slammed the connecting door shut. Minutes later, Victor knocked, still grinning that goofy grin. He asked why I'd been filming his place. I lied poorly. He laughed it off, explaining he had cameras and got an alert. When I confessed, he made a casual remark about how nobody locks doors around here. I forced a laugh, locked everything, and dragged a heavy wooden armchair across the floor to wedge it hard against the door as a makeshift barricade. Mia warned me over the phone, "That guy gives me bad vibes. Protect yourself." When my family returned from the hike, they were angrier about my snooping than anything else. I yelled back defensively. Soon they left for dinner, and I stayed behind again. As night fell, the forest outside became absolute blackness. No lights, no stars, just void pressing against the windows. I was texting Mia on the couch when a violent crash exploded from the end of the hallway. My heart slammed against my ribs. It sounded exactly like the heavy chair being knocked over. Every worst-case scenario flooded my brain. I crept down the dark hall, muscles tight, ready to confront whatever or whoever was there. The end was pitch black. I flipped the light switch. The chair lay toppled on its side. Next to it sat a dirty backpack that didn't belong to any of us. Terror surged through me. I sprinted to the screen front porch, locked both doors, and crouched in a tight ball under the patio table, shaking. In my panic, I'd left my phone inside. Footsteps began moving through the main house. Slow, deliberate, calm, not rushing, just walking. Time stretched into agony. Then headlights cut through the darkness. My dad's car. I burst outside screaming for them to stay in the vehicle. My words tumbled out incoherently. That's when Victor appeared from the shadows. His usual loud cheerfulness was gone. His face was ashen, eyes haunted. He pulled my dad aside. I tried to stop them, but Dad waved me off. Victor's body language screamed urgency. Moments later, Dad ordered us all into the van and sped us to a grocery store parking lot a mile away. Police cars soon raced past with flashing lights. My little brother looked terrified. Dad finally told us the truth. Victor had heard the crash too and checked his cameras, thinking it was me pulling another prank. When the light came on, he saw the chair and backpack. Then a tall, bald stranger stepped out of my bedroom. Someone who wasn't family. The man grabbed the backpack and retreated. Victor ran outside to help, but saw me hiding on the porch. Instead of risking a direct confrontation that might endanger me, he hid in the yard and watched. As soon as my family returned, he told Dad everything. We waited in the lot until Victor called. Police had chased the intruder into the woods, but he got away. Victor brought our things to us. We spent the night in a hotel and drove home the next day. Months later, Dad checked back. The man was never caught. No one knew how he got in or what he wanted. Maybe just a drifter looking for shelter. That's what I told myself so I could sleep. But deep down, I know the truth. Sometimes the scariest monsters aren't the ones that chase you. They're the ones already hiding inside the walls, waiting patiently while you act like nothing's wrong. Story 2. Every summer, my extended family gathered at my aunt and uncle's beautiful oceanfront house in Vero Beach, Florida. My cousin Ryan was the same age as me, and we were more like brothers. My other cousin Sophie looked so much like me, same last name, similar features, that strangers constantly asked if we were twins. We loved playing along with the joke. As we got older, our nights became legendary. Days were spent relaxing on the beach with the whole family. But after dark, Ryan would take us to every lively bar and club along the coast. I always stayed mostly sober to make sure we all got home safely. Ryan, however, had a bad habit of drinking way past his limit. One night a few years ago, Ryan got loud and aggressive in a crowded beachside bar. He kept bragging about being a local and running his mouth at everyone around him. Eventually, the bouncer had enough and physically threw him out onto the street. His pride took a much bigger hit than his body. I told Sophie to keep an eye on him while I arranged a ride home. Ryan immediately started calling me a buzzkill and a party pooper, the universal sign that it was time to leave. While we were waiting for the car, I stepped aside and called my girlfriend to tell her about the crazy night we were having. She was laughing as I described the chaos in detail. Suddenly, Sophie ran up to me in complete panic, her eyes wide with fear. I only looked away for a second to check my phone, and Ryan disappeared, she said, breathing heavily. We immediately started running through the streets, desperately shouting his name. A couple of minutes later, Sophie grabbed my arm tightly and pointed ahead. There he is! Ryan was stumbling badly in a crooked zigzag line, heading straight toward the dark mangrove swamp. A thick, tangled wetland full of deep mud, twisted roots, and black, stagnant water. Typical for that part of Florida. Sophie reached him first and began scolding him harshly. Ryan just laughed like a mischievous child, completely unbothered. The moment she let go of his arm, he suddenly bolted straight into the swamp like a madman. Without thinking twice, fueled by a rush of adrenaline and anger, Sophie and I sprinted after him into the darkness. The ground was absolutely disgusting. Our shoes sank deep into thick, foul-smelling mud with every step. Using the flashlights on our phones, we pushed through dense brush and low branches, our clothes constantly catching on thorns. It took us a little while, but we finally caught up with him. He was too drunk to move very fast. Then out of nowhere, Ryan hissed at us to shut up. His face had completely changed. The sloppy, drunken grin was gone, replaced by genuine terror. Before we could ask what was wrong, he ducked down low, motioning for us to do the same. That's when we heard it. Screams, not normal shouting or arguing. These were deep, guttural, blood-curdling cries filled with pure agony and terror, the kind I had never heard before and hoped to never hear again. The screams echoed wildly through the trees, seeming to come from every direction at once. We froze in the cold mud, our hearts pounding violently in our chests. Whoever was screaming sounded like they were fighting for their life. We stayed completely silent, crouched low, listening as the horrific sounds continued. Then, as suddenly as they had started, the screams stopped. Dead silence fell over the swamp. We didn't move. We stayed hidden in that muddy spot for at least another 15 agonizing minutes, barely breathing, flinching at every small rustle or splash around us. When we finally decided it was safe, we sprinted out of that nightmare swamp as fast as our legs could carry us. We found a ride home, and the shock sobered us up instantly. The next morning, we tried to make sense of what we had heard. Sophie suggested we go back during daylight to check the area. She had an incredible sense of direction and somehow managed to lead us back to almost the exact spot where we had been hiding the night before. Our 3 sets of footprints were still clearly visible in the soft mud. After discussing it for a while, we agreed on the general direction the screams had come from and pushed forward through the thick brush and muddy puddles. A few minutes later, Sophie suddenly gasped. Hanging from a low tree branch was a torn sleeve of a denim jacket. Below it, the ground was chaotic with dozens of overlapping footprints, clear signs of a violent struggle. I wanted to turn back immediately, but Sophie continued a little further. In a small clearing surrounded by trees lay the rest of the shredded denim jacket. More clustered footprints surrounded it. One single set of footprints led away from the scene into thicker brush, where they eventually disappeared. A deep feeling of unease washed over me. I told Sophie and Ryan that I no longer felt safe and wanted to go back to the house. They were uneasy too, but not as scared as I was. Back at the house, they managed to talk me out of calling the police. Ryan argued that we would look suspicious and that no one would believe 3 young people who wandered drunk into a swamp at night. At the time, his logic seemed convincing, so we decided to let it go. It's been several years now, but I still think about those screams almost every week. I often wonder if we witnessed the beginning or end of a real crime. Sometimes I regret not calling the police that same night. Sharing this story has been strangely therapeutic, but I hope no one else ever has to hear screams like that in their lifetime. Because once you do, they never truly leave you. Story 3. Never trust the guy at the gas station who smiles too wide and wants to be your best friend immediately, especially when you're hundreds of miles from home. Last summer, my girlfriend Elena and I took our very first trip as a couple. It felt like a big step. Just the 2 of us. No family buffer. We chose the lively beach town of Coastal Shores, Delaware. Boardwalks, bright condos, and endless ocean views. I'd been there as a kid and was excited to see it through adult eyes. About 20 minutes from our rental, I pulled into a gas station. While paying, a friendly guy bumped into me. He spun around apologizing profusely. I laughed it off. He introduced himself as Marcus. Late 20s, good-looking, open shirt, warm eyes that locked onto yours. We chatted easily. When I mentioned our condo, his face lit up. He and his friend were heading there too. The coincidence thrilled my overly trusting brain. I gave him my number without hesitation. We bro-hugged and parted ways. Elena immediately sensed what happened when I got back to the car. She rolled her eyes and warned me I was too nice to strangers. I brushed it off. The next morning, we hit the beach early. Around mid-morning, Marcus appeared waving, with a woman trailing behind. She looked completely out of place, pale, hidden behind huge sunglasses and a wide hat, dressed in long sleeves and leggings on a hot beach day. She carried a big empty tote bag and barely spoke. Marcus introduced her as Lila. She gave a weak, miserable smile. They joined us. Marcus was energetic and chatty. Lila seemed irritated by everything, especially the sun. He mentioned they were staying in the building right next to ours. Elena's red flags were waving hard, But I was still riding the high of the cool coincidence. That night on the balcony, I thought I saw Lila walking alone on the beach in the same outfit. Later, while checking the lock before bed, I heard muffled voices right outside our door. The knob rattled. I calmly called out, "Wrong room." Footsteps ran away. I told myself it was just a drunk guest. The next day, Marcus and Lila appeared again. Same clothes. Elena was done. I politely said we had romantic plans. That evening from the balcony, I watched Lila standing below our building, staring at the ocean. Marcus suddenly emerged from the ground floor of our own building, argued with her wildly, then stormed off. She followed. While we were walking back from dinner, Marcus started calling nonstop. I ignored him. His final text stopped us cold in the parking lot. "Don't go to your room yet." The door to our condo was slightly ajar. Elena waited in the hall, terrified. I stepped inside slowly. At first, everything looked normal. Then the violations hit. Balcony door wide open, suitcases completely ransacked. Missing were my favorite sneakers, one of Elena's swimsuits, and the printed photo of us together that had been on the dresser. Police came. No record of Marcus or Lila in the neighboring building. The phone was disconnected. Officers said tourist robberies happen occasionally. We were just unlucky. But I know it wasn't random. That trip taught me a brutal lesson. My strength of seeing the best in everyone had nearly cost us everything. Somewhere out there, people like Marcus and Lila are still smiling at gas stations, waiting for the next overly friendly tourist to let their guard down.